I'm on my way to meet with Elgie, Head of Licensing and Training Standards at the UK Civil Aviation Authority, the CAA. The CAA has recently published details of changes to the ground-based written exams taken by students training for a private pilot's licence, the PPL. Under the new exam schedule, the number of exam papers sat by a student will increase from 7 to 9. Each exam will feature between 16 and 20 questions, with a pass mark of 75%, and these changes will come into force on the 1st of September 2013. Good morning, Ray. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I really appreciate this chance for you to share all this exciting changes about the licensing and the exams. Could you perhaps introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your early days of aviation to how you're now at the Civil Aviation Authority?
Okay. Well, I first became interested in aviation in 1968 at the Biggin Hill Air Show. Having been there and seen the equipment and the aeroplanes there, that's when I first fell in love with aviation. Decided there and then I wanted to work in the business. Was fortunate enough when I left school to get an apprenticeship with British Airways. So I'm an aircraft maintenance engineer professionally by background. Spent a total of 11 years with British Airways and British Caledonian, and then I joined the CAA 24 years ago. Initially in certification, aircraft and engine certification, and I've worked in various different capacities ever since, and currently am head of the Licensing and Training Standards Division.
So we're here today to learn about the changes in the private pilot's licence written ground school. Could you perhaps give us a tiny background about how these changes came about and what the changes are?
Okay. What's driving the changes at the moment is the move towards the adoption of European regulations, commonly referred to as the EASA aircrew regulation. And the drive behind that is to harmonise standards across Europe so that all of the training that people have and the exams that they take is recognised across all of the European Union. And the benefit that will have is that all of the licences that are issued in accordance with that aircrew regulation will be recognised throughout Europe. As to the thinking behind it, it really is just a question of making sure that all the standards across Europe are harmonised and standardised as far as possible. So that enables people to move freely, throughout the European Union and carry their licence with them. So that reduces the burden in terms of having to get their licences validated by different countries once they move from one area to another, for example, if they want to move jobs from one area to another.
From a flying school's perspective, and also those that already have their ATO registration, what will flying schools have to do differently in order to fulfil this 100-hour structured learning obligations?
Okay, for the PPL specifically,
yes,
you're
please.
asking, yeah. So for the structured learning, the flying schools and the current registered training facilities will have to make sure they keep good records of the training, the theoretical knowledge training that they provide. Now, that's not necessarily meaning that they have to do it differently, but it will mean that they have to record it so that they can demonstrate that they have actually delivered a structured learning programme. And they can do that either in the classroom or if they've got access to it through any other appropriate means. For example, if they want to provide that information online.
Right, so that online facility is there for the student records?
Provided that online training is part of the structured learning that's provided by the approved training organisation.
Could you therefore explain to some of our viewers what is meant by structured learning?
It's making sure that the learning does take place in a very thorough, methodical approach, and that you do cover and are able to demonstrate that you've covered all aspects of the syllabus and the learning objectives within that syllabus.
So a lot of people watching this will be online.
Right. And
there are lots of online PPL courses out there. Could that be an example of a structured learning, or was that not really the right way?
No, I'm aware that there are lots of online courses available, but the important thing here is that the online learning is acceptable only if it's delivered in accordance with an approved training organisation. So that's not saying that online learning is not acceptable, but it has to be provided as part of a structured course delivered through an approved training organisation.
The CAA already has a system for sitting periods for the commercial written exams, which are usually held at Gatwick, Ray's about to explain to me what the term sitting will mean for the PPL student.
So a sitting is defined as any period during which a student or a candidate sits down to take a number of exams. It might just be one exam, it could be a number of different exams, but a sitting is any period that starts with the student taking that first exam.
And is that a particular, how many days is a sitting?
And a sitting is defined as a 10-day period, so whatever number of exams they take within that 10-day period is defined as a sitting.
Students able to, should they not pass one exam, can they do the second one within the one sitting?
They can't retake an exam within a sitting, but they can retake the exam in later sittings.
Do the exams don't have to be done at Gatwick?
No, the exams don't have to be done at Gatwick. They have to be done under the supervision of an appropriate ground examiner.
Once a student takes their first PPL written exam, they will need to complete all 9 exams within 18 months. And these exams will then be valid for 2 years, allowing students to complete all their flight training towards the issue of the PPL. Do you think this additional 2 exams will have a massive impact on the overall cost of the PPL for future cadets?
I don't see it as increasing cost very much, if at all, actually. I think it's the driver behind the change was to make sure that the syllabus was covered, all aspects of the syllabus were covered through the exams that were being delivered. So, and to mirror exactly the syllabus and learning objectives that EASA has written down for us in the aircrew regulation. Certainly the objectives of EASA is to achieve a high uniform level of safety. So all the work that's gone into the harmonisation underpins the upkeep of a really good safety record throughout Europe.
At the moment, one of the things about the PPL is it's self-study. And yes. I think it's actually really good that there is this structured 100 hours as part of the overall process.
I think that's important as well. It should help the students make sure and give them confidence that they've actually understood the subjects that are being taught and that they're reading about.
The smaller schools will have to budget for the instructor's time. Do you think that will mean that maybe the custom will go to the bigger schools?
Not necessarily, I don't think, because as we've said before, a lot of the teaching can still be accessed online, provided that it's directed by the approved training provider. So the instructors don't necessarily have to provide all of the 100 hours teaching themselves, provided that the teaching is undertaken under their direction and that there is some lessons that do take place in the classroom to check that the students have properly understood the subjects that they've been reading about online.
And do you think that publishers like Pooley's or AFE and others are at the same speed as you're delivering of the papers in terms of the written study materials?
The papers we'll be issuing during the course of the summer of this year, and they'll go out to all of the approved schools and the registered training facilities, all the people that are registered with us, with ground instructors and examiners. I can't really speak for the publishers of the likes of Pooley's and so forth that are producing books. Certainly we use those books as reference material in order to help us to write the exams and cover. So I think they certainly do keep in touch with the syllabus and the learning objectives that EASA publish. I think the challenge is for flying schools to actually keep up to date with what the changes are and what they have to do in response to those changes. And what we're going to do during the course of the later part of the summer is to run a series of roadshows where we'll be going out to various locations across the UK in order to give out information and discuss face-to-face with the flight training schools how we can help them to come to terms with the changes, understand the changes, and more importantly understand what they need to do in response to the changes in the requirements. What we are intending to do is to publish an information notice probably towards the end of July, very early August, which will contain more details about the roadshows, where they will be and the dates that they'll be held. We are aware that there's a plethora of information out there and some of it's quite difficult to find, so we are doing what we can at the moment to try and make that more simple for the training schools and for students to access.
I think you've been a strong advocate of higher education, and indeed you're very passionate about making sure that people have the right infrastructure for learning. So therefore, how important do you think the creation of apprenticeship schemes are now going to help change the way the UK training sector accreditates the professional pilot?
Okay, I think there's two aspects there for me. One is making sure wherever we can that we can align the vocational training and academic training so that we give cross-credit and accreditation wherever possible. So that's much more effective for the students concerned and much more cost-effective for the whole system. I think it helps to make sure that the students get the right training at the right time. As I say, it's a much more efficient way of working. In terms of the apprenticeship scheme for pilots that has been hitting the headlines recently, I think that's a really important step forward. It's the first apprenticeship scheme of its kind in the UK ever, and it should help to increase access to the pilot training system to a lot more people so that we open up the marketplace so that the right people get the right jobs. People are chosen on their ability to fly, potential ability to fly, rather than on their ability to actually pay. And it should have great benefits for equality and diversity, which I think is also a really important issue.
Will this spearhead other aviation sovereign states to try and marry what you've achieved?
I'd like to think so. I think certainly we would want to hold this up as a good example for people to follow. Of course, what it means is for a pilot, that a student pilot, is that they go through an apprenticeship scheme that's approved, so they come out of that training course with an apprenticeship, they come out with a level 6 honours degree, and they come out with a pilot's licence that's issued by the National Aviation Authority, in this case the CAA. We're looking at the moment to roll that out beyond England, because at the moment the arrangements relate only to those pilots studying in England. We are already in discussion with the Scottish Government and the Welsh Assembly and the Northern Ireland Assembly, so that we can see that rolled out across the whole of the UK, and then hopefully that would be a model for other people to follow across Europe.
Well, I've been generally really thrilled with all this exciting stuff that you've worked many hours on, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And as a final perhaps question, what would you say is an example of your perfect day?
A perfect day will be if we can actually go home genuinely at the end of it, knowing that we've helped someone to get on with their career, or we've helped someone get on with their job in the aviation industry.
Thank you very much, Ray Elgie.
Thank you.
I think the plane ride was super cool, extremely cool actually.